going to talk about individuation from the perspective of LLC, the like sort of collective social plane. And what I have in mind is the question of really two things. So individuation is always birth of some kind, right? Like in the material sphere, like you imagine giving birth to a child and how, the child kind of grows on its own, and there's only like you're active in the process, I guess, like during pregnancy as well as with like parenting or whatever. Like obviously there's a task for the parent, but the parent is not the child, and the child has its own free will, and what's good for the parent to do is to sort of tend to that. So it's like on the individual level, like every person is actually their own child. Like every person has a sort of aspect of their soul that is as spontaneous and kind of non-linguistic, that has the magic of like a non-socialized person, there's this task to kind of tend to that well. So, and I talked about that in a previous video, but so and that's the alimony of Sem. In the alimony of LLC, the question, there's really kind of two questions. One is, how does a person give birth to a social nexus that fosters individuation for themselves and for the other people involved? How to give birth to that itself, and like on the collective and the sort of like apocalyptic attitude, how like what would heaven be like as a kind of incubator of the creative drive, as being above other things, so yeah, how to give birth to it, and then what would its characteristics be? And on my mind, for whatever reason right now, are like, here are two kind of just like speculative proposals that are kind of specific. So one is that you can imagine a society where, like, how slavery is illegal, and like the whole world kind of believes that slavery is morally wrong, and in most countries it's illegal. You could be punished. And keep in mind, that means not just that you can't enslave someone, but also that you can't sell yourself into slavery either. People don't think about that part as much. Like, you can't, like, I can't sell you my child. I also can't sell you myself. You can't sell yourself to somebody. And I would argue that, or argue is kind of the wrong word. I would envision that in Heiligen, alienated labor as such should be illegal in the same way. And so it'll be the kind of thing where, like, we look back on an era where people were selling their time at all for a wage or for a salary, and that will seem as barbaric, or maybe like less barbaric than slavery, but also barbaric from this new higher perspective. And And that would, of course, depend on the principle of hierarchy being fulfilled, where the resources are freely available to everybody to fulfill their potential. So there would be no need to sell your labor, but I think it would make sense for it to actually be illegal, or at least be seen as immoral, as a type of abuse, because I mean that's what it is, and so that's really when, this is a vision of communism. It's a very high-tech one, very aligned with Marx's own views, though a lot of contemporary Marxists don't see that. But it would require capitalism to push through to a point where there are technological resources available for people, for exchange value and use value to just not really matter anymore. And it's all about intrinsic value, actual truth, goodness, beauty, justice, love, sharing, creation, learning. And so that would be in the constitution of the sovereign, hierarchical, emancipatory individuation municipality of Heiligen. That would, I guess, be an article. And then also that education, so clearly education, our children are not going to go to school the way that we have gone to school, right? There's not going to be, ideally, hopefully, there won't be the same need for teachers and things like that, because it's just going to be a couple of years before there are, like there was like a meme, not really a meme, but just a kind of viral-ish video of a Boston Dynamics dog that can like be a tour guide, and he can talk, and like it's trivial at this point practically to create an AI teacher who is physical or a fun virtual character who can build a lesson plan in a snap, and to make it more entertaining and more engaging than 99% of teachers, especially in like public schools, actually are. This is one of the great positive potentials of the future, is the potential to make education and the beauty of art and science really seem beautiful to people, and because you can make it so aesthetically beautiful and so entertaining, just sort of objectively in a way, but also it can there's a whole art to like finding where someone is at and then teaching them at that level, and an AI would be much better at monitoring that level in a child than teachers usually are. I mean, people are not very sensitive to one another, even when it's their job. So like, having like a smart assistant who's your teacher, who you're definitely, no one's in control of it. So that's, needless to say, that's really important. Like, it can't be a propaganda machine. It has to be safe. It can't be hacked. I think it's actually not going to be that hard to make sure those things are the case. Anyway, but here's the kind of, I've never actually heard this point made before. Here's the idea, is that according to the law of Heiligen, the AI should teach the kid whatever the kid is showing potential and interest in, regardless of what the parent thinks, and regardless of what, I guess the state or whatever thinks, right? That there should be a right to autonomous education. So like, you know how in schools there's a lot of fighting going on in schools about whether parents should be allowed to sort of make schools not teach or teach certain things, and vice versa. I think it should be neither the government. The government should guarantee that neither the government nor the parent gets to decide what the kid learns. There just needs to be an optimized sort of awareness of what the kid loves, of what the kid's potential is that actually works, and the child gets to decide. So even though it's very immature, like there are very obvious guardrails against like self-destructive desires, or immature ones. Like I think the AI should be fed with like just data about maturation, which is all really uncontroversial stuff. And that type of educational autonomy would really change the world. So, education and the intrinsic right to not sell your labor, and it actually being a law that just like you can't sell yourself into slavery, you can't sell your labor. And that could actually be, difficult. Like I think in the present time, like there are people who there's almost an addiction to not making contact with your dreams and visions and making excuses. At least I've experienced that in certain realms of my life, that like it's really, really painful, and it's sort of a difficult responsibility to live up to sort of the task that like God has given you in the form of your talents and abilities. But it is a world where people were mostly focused on doing that would be a world where just a much brighter world, because so much of the drama and division and pain in the world comes from just like mirages, bad faith, what Nietzsche called resentment, so yeah, individuation, collective individuation.